DeWanna Bonner in the hot seat after saying what she stated last night in her press conference, man. I can't lie, it does look like some hypocrisy going on.
DeWanna Bonner continues to take shots at the Indiana Fever and the Fever fans. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
The room went quiet before anyone noticed. One line in a post-game interview cut through the noise. "I wouldn't change a thing." A veteran said it. A fan base heard it like a door closing. The feeling that followed was heavier than a loss. It felt like trust leaving the building.
I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey and I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am in Phoenix and it happened that way for a reason. I mean, really, that is a wild statement.
You stole that money from Indiana. You signed up for that bread and didn't deliver. You didn't show up for work. You made up bullcrap excuses to not be at.
The line came from DeWanna Bonner. Indiana heard it as a goodbye note without a period. Coach Stephanie White's rotation choices, a bench role, and a sudden absence formed the backdrop everyone is arguing about. The question no one can agree on is simple. Was this a misfit or a betrayal?
I wouldn't do anything differently. You took 80 grand from the Indiana Fever. You could have just signed. Like, that's one of the things, like, I don't understand why you take these interviews. I don't understand why someone would take an interview and say that, when the reality is that all you did was took a whole bunch of money from a team to not show up.
What happened next moved fast. Clips spread. Commentators filled the gaps with certainty. Some said Bonner signed for big expectations, stepped away for personal reasons, then pushed for an exit. Others said the fit was wrong from day one and the system exposed it. Two stories, one timeline. Which one holds? Before we answer, look at the context that made this flare so hot.
You refused to show up to work while receiving money, while taking payment. You refused to show up and do the job. And let's be clear, you wasn't even good while you was here. You was shooting threes hitting the side of the backboard.
But this is definitely going to be a part of her history, man. Because the new wave is taking over. These new fans are watching. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's going to be a part of her history, unfortunately, man.
Indiana is not the same franchise it was 3 years ago. Caitlin Clark arrived with cameras trailing. Aaliyah Boston is the cornerstone in the paint. Attendance surged. Road arenas filled with Fever jerseys. Every rotation choice looked bigger than it usually does in June. Every word in a presser echoed longer than it used to in August. A veteran walking into that pressure cooker meets more than a playbook. She meets a movement. That is the part we miss when we judge only box scores.
This is DeWanna Bonner. I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey. I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am now in Phoenix, and it happened that way for a reason. It didn't happen that way for a reason. You forced yourself out of Indiana, DeWanna.
And yet the box scores mattered. Early in the season, the production wasn't there. It happens. Legs feel heavy, rolls wobble. In this case, a younger wing, Lexi Hull, earned minutes on effort, spacing, and defensive reads. The pace quickened around Clark. The touches redistributed, the rotation tightened. Then came the absence. Then came the exit. Fans stitched those beats into a story of convenience. Was it, or did we confuse a chain of events with intent? Hold that thought. It will matter in 60 seconds.
I don't understand why DeWanna Bonner is taking these interviews at this point in time, because I'm like, look, you're in Phoenix. You've got what you wanted. You've got what everyone expected you wanted all along. Everything's gone your way. Indiana haters are going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. They're going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. Phoenix Mercury fans are going to love you. Rival fans are going to love you because you basically screwed over the Fever. Fever fans are going to hate you because you screwed over the Fever.
Here's the moment that made everything louder. The return elsewhere. A strong night. The shot fell. The legs looked loose. For some, it was confirmation that effort had been withheld. For others, it was the most ordinary explanation in sports. Different spacing, different partners, different usage. We've watched that movie forever. Candace Parker left Los Angeles and looked unlocked in Chicago. Jonquil Jones needed touches to become herself in New York. Fit is not an excuse. It's a reality. So which is it here? Fit or intent? The truth likely starts in a place more boring than either extreme: communication.
Here, you stunk it up, and then you got benched. Just because you was okay with coming off the bench in another situation, don't mean you was okay with coming off the bench in this situation. So I want to know what's the real? What's the real? Because you can't say while you was here, you said, "Oh, I've never played in front of this many fans." You were embraced by the fans. You spoke highly of the fans while you were here, you were a starter, but you wasn't playing well. And that was nobody else's fault that you was shooting threes, hitting the side of the backboard, and you was smoking layups. And then your starting spot got took, and then all of a sudden you refused to show up to work.
Coaches talk about roles. Veterans hear those roles as status. When status shifts, a human being stands there with pride in one hand and a new job in the other. If you want a powder keg, mix pride with silence. If you want a season, mix pride with clarity. Did the conversation happen early enough? Was the message consistent? Only the locker room knows. What we can see is the fallout, a fan base that felt used, and a league watching to see whether the standard holds when headlines run hot. There's also the Fever's reality to consider. This rebuild is not just about talent, it's about identity. Christie sides wants pace and pressure. Clark wants the ball up the floor in a heartbeat. Boston wants early seals and smart touches. The wings live in the corners and chase on defense. That's oxygen for a 23-year-old and a slow burn for a veteran in her late 30s. It doesn't mean older players can't thrive. It means their value lives in smaller bursts and steady edges. Screen angles, box outs, switches called a second early. A veteran can win you a quarter with wisdom, but she must accept the job as it is, not as it was. Did acceptance happen? Or did we watch two versions of the same team play past each other? The numbers turned into weapons online. Single-digit nights, limited starts, a bench roll. You've seen the posts. What numbers don't show is the most important thing, intent. Was effort missing or chemistry? Was urgency missing or rhythm? A box score can't tell you if a player ran a decoy cut to free Clark for a clean catch. A box score won't tell you whether a defensive switch saved a guard from a mismatch. Fans felt disregard. The veteran felt boxed in. Both felt certain they were right. Certainty is a powerful drug. It is also how bridges burn. Let's widen the lens. The WNBA in 2024 is a pressure environment unlike any other in its history. The Aces chased a dynasty. The Liberty loaded up with stars. The Mercury searched for balance around Brittany Griner's return. Rivalries went national. Clark versus Reese became a nightly referendum on something bigger than basketball. In that storm, the Fever grew up on camera. Some nights they looked ahead of schedule. Some nights they looked like kids. The line between fair criticism and pile-on blurred. When a veteran stepped out of that frame, it felt personal because the whole season felt personal. That is the cost of relevance. It is also the opportunity. So here's the hinge. Two readings of the same player can both be true in parts. Reading 1, Bonner was blindsided by a shrinking role, handled it poorly, and defended herself with words that made the wound worse. I wouldn't change a thing. If you hear that after weeks of missed games, it lands as arrogance. Reading 2, she walked into a system where her strengths were minimized, asked for clarity, didn't get it fast enough, and chose a setting that revived her game. If you hear that, you call it a professional decision, not betrayal. Which reading you choose says as much about your relationship to the team as it does about the player. Now the practical ground, without drama. This is how teams actually navigate moments like this. Trades and exits follow rules set long before emotions run high. Cap charges follow those same rules. If either side believes those rules were bent, there are internal paths to address it. None of that undoes the human side. None of it replaces the need for leaders, coaches, veterans, front offices, to say the quiet parts out loud when roles change. In the end, culture either absorbs shock or it cracks. Let's be specific about responsibility. Think of it as an accountability matrix. Player, availability, effort, professionalism when roles change. Owning the bench if that's the job. Coach, Stephanie White. Role clarity, consistent standards, and early honest communication when the rotation shifts. Front office, fit over fame. Messaging that protects culture and supports the coach's plan. League PA, enforcing the rules, offering the proper dispute paths, and not trying cases in public. Realistic remedies, internal fines where permitted, trades, DNP CDs, transparent role definitions. Unrealistic remedies, retroactive score settling, public shaming, and canceling contracts by comment section. Now the emotional crest. The people who showed up in Indiana this year did more than buy tickets. They made the arena feel like a promise. They bought a veteran's jersey because they believed she would steady the kids when the room shook. They introduced their daughters to a player who seemed to say, "We are building something here. Stay with us." When that player disappeared and reappeared in another uniform with a hot hand, it felt like being left mid-sentence. That is why you heard the word betrayal more than bust. A bust just fails you. Betrayal makes you doubt your judgment. There is also a quieter pain in the locker room we never see. Younger players watch how veterans respond to discomfort. Do they come early anyway? Do they huddle with the second unit and talk through angles? Do they bend so the team doesn't break? Those habits become culture. The Fever's culture is still fragile. One exit can feel larger than a roster move because inside a rebuild, everything is an example. That's why the silence from the top hurt. Fans needed the front office to put words around the moment. We didn't get them. In a vacuum, speculation thrives. What happens now will tell you everything. Bonner will either settle into the new role with consistency and earn back respect slowly, or she will chase greener grass and keep forcing a narrative that time does not support. The Fever will either use the minutes to sharpen the identity they've chosen, Clark's pace, Boston's interior gravity, Hull's effort, shooters who sprint the lanes, or they will wobble at the first gust of drama and chase names instead of fits. One path is slow and boring. It wins in April and August. The other sparks comment sections. It loses when the ball goes up. Here's a practical map out of the storm that respects everyone. For a veteran who wants the last stage of her career to matter, pick a lane, own it, and be early. If your job is 18 honest minutes, make them the cleanest 18 on the floor. No turnovers, sharp screens, loud calls, and a hand on the shoulder of a rookie who just got cooked on a switch. Tell the truth in microphones. The role is different. The standard is not. Fans can forgive almost anything but indifference. Show that you care by doing the small work when nobody is filming. For Indiana's brass, speak. Not to drag a player, but to steady the room. Clarity is compassionate. Say what the role was, why it changed, and how the team fills the gap. If the plan is to run, say it. If the plan is to guard for 40 minutes and win ugly, say that too. A young core needs that spine. Free agents do too. When a franchise is selling out midweek, it has earned an honest explanation. For fans who feel burned, hold your anger and your memory. You can do both. Keep the receipts of how you were treated. Also keep the space to see who shows up next. Players change, teams grow. A season that feels like a fracture can end up as the scar that made the future possible. Ask Aces fans what the years before the trophies felt like. Ask Liberty fans what last year taught them about patience and edges. Nobody builds anything worth keeping without surviving a hard chapter. Let's resolve the earlier cliffhanger. Was this a con or a misfit? You don't need inside sources to answer it responsibly. Watch the next 20 games. If the veterans' energy holds when the shots don't, if the details are clean when the cameras aren't, if teammates' quotes carry the quiet respect that travels across locker rooms, she chose a basketball solution, not an escape hatch. If the pattern repeats, hot start, loud words, same exit, then the first story hardens. It was always about control. Time tells the truth that arguments can't. Meanwhile, the Fever have something rare. A year that hurts and heals at the same time. Clark is learning the cost of brilliance, attention, traps, and the nightly expectation of the extraordinary. Boston is learning how to anchor a game when defenses load early. Hull is proving that effort is a skill. The role players are discovering the simplest formula in basketball. Sprint, space, outs, guard your yard, and live with honest misses. If they hold that line, they will not only survive the season, they will become the team veterans want to join for the right reasons. We should also name the other pressure in the room. The WNBA is finally getting the stage it always deserved. That light exposes everything. Weak rotations, weak statements, weak commitments. It also reveals character in real time. Players who lean into accountability become something bigger than their stat lines. Teams that tell the truth when it's hard become destinations. This storm is not a detour from the league's growth. It is a test of whether the league can grow without losing its spine. There's one more hard piece. Words like betrayal can become weapons we swing until nothing is left standing. If we want standards, we must hold them without turning people into permanent villains. A player can do something unprofessional and then do something excellent next month. A team can mishandle a chapter and then handle the next one with grace. The internet likes forever verdicts. Sports are kinder than that. They offer another game. So where do we leave this? With a simple scoreboard that doesn't fit in a box score. For Bonner, minutes played with purpose. For the Fever, possessions played on their terms. For the fans, a memory of the hurt and a willingness to measure effort tomorrow with fresh eyes. If all three show up, the rest follows. Wins, yes, but more than that. Trust slowly returning to the room. We started with a sentence that sounded like a wall. I wouldn't change a thing. Maybe the real work is changing one thing at a time. A conversation before a decision, a clarified role before a headline, an honest apology before a new beginning. That is how teams last. That is how careers end with respect. Your turn. When a veteran clashes with a rebuild, what matters more to you? The promise she made when she signed, or the reality the team discovered once the season began? And what would you change first, So this kind of storm becomes a lesson, not a pattern.